Oh yeah, did I ever tell you guys about how my my driving school went when I was in driving school? No, driving schools, yeah. So there was a driving school that was like partnered with my high school, and it was pretty expensive. But basically, after school, you'd go for like 2 hours a day, and then I forget how long it was. It was like 2 hours a day, and then there was like one Saturday we had to come in and do like a big chunk to like finish it. But you had to do like a bunch of hours in classroom. It was so boring. It was like video after video of like, hello, when you are driving on the road, don't swerve into children. I'm like, dude, what are we watching, man? My dad was my driving instructor. Oh, same. But like so you can't, okay. You can get your permit at 16, and you can get your license at 16 and a half. I think if you have a driving school, like, approval / it also saves you money on your car insurance. It was something like that. Anyway, I was trying to get it as fast as possible, basically. I was trying to speed run getting a driver's license. The point is, though, you have to do 6 hours of observation, which is like you sit in the back seat and watch somebody else drive, and 12 hours of behind the wheel. And so I mostly had this little old lady, but she was super chill. She was actually super chill because the dude was a dick. The dude who owned the company, that dude was a hard ass, like an actual, like I've never seen someone be a hard ass about driving a car before, but this guy somehow did it. And so come on, I've been observing drivers my whole life. Oh, that's where it gets good though. You don't observe like adults driving. You observe other kids drive. So I'm convinced it's just to scare you into like the stupid shit that goes on, because I had to sit in the back seat and the kid who was driving ran a stop sign, and I'm not joking, like just blew through it, and I was sitting in the back seat. I'm like, oh and so she's like, you know, you have to be really, really careful. You just blew a stop sign. That's not okay, you know. And like, he's like, oh, sorry, I didn't see it. She's like, yeah, but you should be going slow here anyways, or whatever. And he's like, oh, my bad, I didn't see it. And then proceeds to blow a second stop sign 5 minutes later. And I was literally sitting in the backseat like this, just like, this was some kid from another school. I didn't know who this was. I had no clue who this person was. It wasn't even from my school. I was literally just sitting in the backseat, just like, and like, they wouldn't let you play on your phone or anything because you're supposed to be like paying attention. So like, I had to sit there for the whole hour and just be like, the guy didn't actually survive the whole hour. She cut him short at 45 minutes because of how bad he was doing. And then that was the funny part, is we had to like drop him off at the school, or he had to go back to the school he was at. It was another town. His mom or mom was like standing there waiting. She gets out of the car, but the windows are open. And she just starts like, you need to take your kid out more. You know, he really needs a lot more practice. And outside of driving hours, you know, he blew a few stop signs and all this stuff. Spectating Frost drive. Shut the f up. Oh, Jesus Christ. No, it really was like spectating. It was crazy. And she literally just starts like, there's no way you're having your kid drive outside of hours. Like, he's like basically flaming him for saying he's terrible. And the mom's like, well, that's your job. And she was like, what? She's like, it's your job to teach him. And she's like, yeah, it is my job to teach him, but like, he needs to have fundamental basics. He doesn't even pay attention. He's extremely like inexperienced, and unless you know, have him drive at least a little bit on his permit with you, he's not gonna get there. And she just like huffed and puffed a little bit and then left. And then I got in and started driving, and she's literally venting to me about telling me how bad her day was. It was like, I've had nothing but like the worst kids today. I swear to God, none of them can drive. And I was just sitting there, and I was just like, okay, you know, whatever. I get on this straightaway. It's this long straightaway, and it's like a 50-mile-an-hour road, but it's one of those roads with like the dashed yellow line where you can like pass. I'm going like 52, right? Because like, you know, I'm doing the driving hours. I'm not driving like an ass. And this Mustang convertible comes flying up behind me, and she panics, and she was like, oh no, that guy's driving really erratically, so you might want to be careful. And I go, nah, he's gonna blow by me, watch. And then the guy like punches it and like goes on the other side and like goes around. And she was like, I'm really surprised you didn't panic. I was like, yeah, I mean, I grew up in Boston. I've seen this shit my whole life. I know what's coming. Like, as long as I don't lose my shit, like, you know, like, what's gonna happen, you know? We're not even driving in Boston. We're driving, like, out in the suburbs. And so, she was like, no, oh, that was pretty good. And so then my next 2 hours were on the highway. So you're supposed to do, so your 11th and 12th hours are supposed to be on the highway. But she actually, she kind of fudged mine. And so I only ended up doing 2 hours of observation. She just like wrote in that I did the other 4. And then I ended up only actually doing, I think, 8 hours of driving. And then she fudged in the last 4. Because one, the stop sign kid, she was like, that probably counts as a few. And then she was impressed with like how I didn't freak out about the person who's like flying behind me and like goes around. And then the highway driving was like fine. She was like, yeah, she's like, normally a lot of people panic getting on and off the highway. I was like, yeah, no, I don't really give a actually took hours off her life. Yeah, for sure. But it gets better. So the day comes where I gotta take my license, right? You gotta do the driver's test. We get crammed into a Ford Fusion. You know what a Ford Fusion is? It ain't that big. And I'm not small. Even in high school, I was not small. I was a lot skinnier in high school, but I was still like, you know. And I get in this car, and it's me and 3 other girls from other schools. I kind of felt bad because, you know, when I like, okay, so they let us do like a warm up, you know, where you drive around for like 5 or 10 minutes, right? It's a Ford Fusion, so I gotta put the car seat all the way back, the thing all the way back too, because otherwise I'm like getting in like this, I'm like, you know, like stuffing my head in and shit. I felt bad for the girls, but she was tiny, so I guess it wasn't that bad. We, you know, he gets back in and the owner and like drives us there or whatever. And so we go inside. We're like, okay, we're gonna do 1 by 1. And so basically, if you've never done a driver's test before, is basically you get in the car with a driving instructor who's typically a state trooper. And sometimes you have your parents slash, you know, the whatever the, you know, owner of the driver's school is, right? I was the last one. Girl number 1 goes. She comes back. Girl number 2 walks out. Girl number 1 comes in and says, I failed. We're like, what? What do you mean you failed? Now we're kind of like, what do you mean you failed? She's like, oh, like I took they didn't like my right turn or something like that, so she just failed me. And I was like, oh shit, okay, that's not good. Second girl leaves, comes back. She gets out, 3rd girl walks out. Second girl comes in and goes, I failed. Now I'm like, what? We're 2 for 2 on fails? And I saw them drive, it wasn't that bad. And so, 3rd girl walks out, right? And now I'm kind of like, shit, I'm not going to hear what 3rd girl says. So 2nd girl says she failed the parallel park. Happens, right? Whatever. 3rd girl goes out. 3rd girl is gone no more than a minute out of the parking lot. Not a fucking minute. And the car pulls back in. And I'm like sitting at the window like, no shot. And so, you know, she gets out, and so I'm like, that's my signal to go outside. So I'm walking by her, and she like looks visibly upset. Like visibly looks upset. I'm like, she failed too. I'll tell you what happened on that one. That one's the best one. I'm like, oh my god. I get in, and it's like, this dude is like the statey. You know what I mean? Like, you know the statey? And he's like got perfect posture. And, you know, he's got the trooper hat on. Everything is fully pressed. And he's like, he like looks at my thing. He's like, Mr. Flaherty, hello? Shakes my hand. He's like, how you doing, sir? I was like, good. He's like, are you ready to take your test? And I was like, and so I like glance back at the driver instructor guy. And like, he's like a little like, you know, like, I don't know. So I get in, you know, do everything. And the guy in the back, you know, the the guy who's like the owner of the driver's school is like trying to be like chatty and like talk to him, you know, and like be like friendly. And I was like, is he like trying to distract him or what? Like, you know what I mean? So we get in and I just start doing the, you know, whatever he tells me. Like, he's like, okay, go up here, take a left, go up here, go straight for 1 minute. Good. Take a right, you know, whatever. And then he pulls me off onto a street and it's like parallel park here. And I was like, wait, parallel park? There's no cars though. He's like, just pretend, son. I was like, okay. So I just went, just backed into it because like it's just a straight side street with no cars. And he goes, we'll probably have to find a better spot because you're right. That was a little easy. Can you do a 3-point turn for me? And so I'm like, yeah, sure. So I like flip blinker on, look, and then I pulled a 180 because I had the car so tight. I was like, oh shit. He asked for a 3-point turn and I'm almost done. And so I stopped like almost all the way, like, you know what I mean? Like went like this. And I turned and looked at him and I go, can I just like back it up and count it as a 3-point turn? And he goes, honestly, I didn't think you could pull a 180 like that here. Oh, that's fine. I'll count it as a 3-point turn. I don't think it's that hard. And I was like, okay, cool. And so I'm like, man, this guy's kind of chill, you know? And so now we're driving on the main road again. And you know, like those like small towns, you know what I'm talking about? Where it's like the strips and it's like, there's only street parking, right? And like, sometimes it's a little bit suspect, you know what I mean? You know, so like they don't have parking lots. It's like all street parking. It's a little, you know what I mean? And so he's like, parallel park here. And like, you know, I was like, all right. And so I whipped into it, no problem. And he was like, that was a pretty tight fit. Nice job. So am I good? And he's like, yep, continue on. And I was like, all right. And he's like, all right, why don't you go straight here? And then we'll be taking a right at the next light. And I was like, okay. And so I started driving. I found out where the girl with the right turn failed. Because we come up to this light, but the line, you know, like the white line of where you're supposed to stop, was way further back than where it was like you thought it was going to be. Like, you think it's like up at the corner. No. It was like 3 cars back. And I don't know why it was like that. So I stopped at it and I was like, wait, why is the line this far back? And the guy goes, oh, he's like, it didn't get you. And I was like, what? And he's like, very good job. Like, he's like, most people miss that. That's what it was. That's what he was tricking people on, was that turn. Because you're not like, you go out, like you roll up to the light and then go. It was so far back, you couldn't like take a right on red. You know what I mean? Light turns green right away. Because at that point, I'm like, I'd have to roll up pretty far to take a right. You know what I mean? Like to do a right on red. But the light luckily turned green, so I didn't have to worry about it. You know what I mean? I was like, do I inch up and go for the right on red? Because like I can, right? Like there's no problem. But like, you know, your brain's like, should I do it or not? Didn't matter. Turned green, so we're good. So we go back. I was the only one who passed. That other girl did fail. And so everybody was getting dropped off. I was the last one to get dropped off. And so the guy's talking to me and was like, yeah, it was pretty good. You know, honestly, that guy was kind of a hard ass. It was kind of like really going hard on people. I'm surprised, you know, I'm surprised that you made it through so easily. And I was like, I mean, it wasn't that hard. Just the one like line was a little bit tricky. He goes, well, I mean, he also probably was a little bit easier on you than the other girls. And I was like, why is that? And he's like, well, the girl before you, well, she pulled out of the parking lot and started driving down the wrong side of the road. I was like, wait, she what? He was like, oh yeah, like we pulled out and she just started going the opposite direction. And he like gave her a minute. He gave her a minute to like, you know, like, hey, like you need to finish the turn, right? And she just starts going the opposite way. And I guess like the trooper was like looking at her like, hello? And then she just doesn't turn over. And so he just like reached over and like pulled the wheel to the right and was like, you're done. I was like, oh my God, what the? Yeah, so apparently the girl that got out that was really distressed was literally driving down the wrong side of the road the entire, like during her test. I was like, holy. Although maybe I shouldn't be so hard on her because I did that one time. Not for very long, it was only for like 5 seconds. But I did do that one time when I was really, really new to driving with my dad. I still had my permit and it was on my street, so there like wasn't really any cars. I had been playing a lot of Sleeping Dogs. You know what Sleeping Dogs is, chat? You're basically like a was it in China or Japan? I don't remember. It's like either China or Japan. You're basically like an undercover cop who's like trying to like bust gangs. You're basically playing undercover GTA Chinese edition. or in Hong Kong. I've been playing that nonstop for the last like 3 days, and so in that game you drive on the left side of the road. So I pulled out with my dad, and my dad goes, "What the f are you doing?" I was like we literally pulled out of my house, and he's like, "What the f are you doing?" I was like, "What?" He goes, "You gonna pull over to the other side or what?" And I was like, yeah, my bad." He's like, "Jesus Christ, what's wrong with you?" And I was like, I don't know. I didn't admit it to him, but I remember being like, "Ah, dude."